Okay, so our conversation today is all about how does OptiFlow help the Layton Lakes HOA save water? And the teaser from last week was, for my water nerds out there listening, know that OptiFlow doesn't actually adjust your irrigation schedules. And so I wanted to talk about how your use of OptiFlow is actually changing the way that you're irrigating and allowing the Layton Lakes HOA, the community that you manage, to kind of take the next step in water management and save some water. So to do that, I have with me my friend DeWayne Thompson from Four Peaks Landscaping. And you guys are out of Phoenix, but the property is in Gilbert, is that right?
The property is it's right on the Gilbert-Chandler border. Half of the property is in Gilbert, half the property is in the city of Chandler. So it's out in the East Valley for anyone that's familiar with the Phoenix metro area. We as a company, we have 3-4 different yards. We service the entire valley, have communities that we take care of. 99.9% of all of our business is HOAs, master plan communities, which there are some really large ones out here in the valley. I was telling you earlier, and I don't know if anyone else heard that. So at the property that I'm at, Layton Lakes, we've got about 73 acres of turf in the community, which is actually more turf than you're allowed to have on any new golf course that's built. 68 acres is the limit of turf that you can have. So I've got more than a golf course worth of turf. And then we've got roughly 100 acres of common area. That's where all of our shrubs, shrubs and trees and so forth are in those areas. And then we've got over 7,000, about 7,500 trees throughout the property. Man. So a lot of plant material, a lot of things. And anyone that's been out here in the summer, if you don't have proper irrigation, stuff is not going to live for long. So it is extremely key to success.
As you're managing this property and you're managing that irrigation system, just a little bit of background, right? The property had WeatherTrack on it, but not OptiFlow. Yes. So I want to start by describing, kind of give us the high level tour of the irrigation system that you're managing when you took over.
So we are, to start with, we are on reclaimed water. We get our reclaimed water from the city of Chandler, their affluent water plant. So the water comes in from the city. We've got a pump station. We're right at about 2,500 gallons a minute is what our pump station can pump out to the field. The biggest problem that I had prior to, and full service or opening things up. So we are not 100% OptiFlow from one side of the community to the other. We're still in that those early stages. We're at about 50% of our controllers. We have 55 controllers right now that are online with WeatherTrack, or 55 WeatherTrack controllers. And about 25, 27 of them are online with OptiFlow right now. We're getting close to that 50% mark. So as we're transitioning, the biggest thing is having OptiFlow on there now has drastically, well, it's done two things. It's allowed me to reduce my water windows because having a pump station that has a value that I cannot exceed at any given time, I'm doing a lot of prior to OptiFlow, I was doing a lot of rough math.
That's exactly where I want to drill in, right? I want to talk about the process of management, the math that you're talking about.
No doubt.
How do you juggle that act?
It was absolutely ridiculous. And just to give people a perspective of the size of the property, it's almost 1.5 miles, 2 miles from one end of the property to the other end of the property. So the pump station is roughly in the middle, but you're going 1.5 miles any one direction to get to the far end of the property. And for me to be able to get that much volume out to the far end of the property, I can't overtax my pump station, or I'm going to shut my pump station down. So I knew I could say for a fact, I knew I was not maximizing the ability of the pump station, but at the same point, I didn't want to come close to for asking for more water than my pump station could demand. So I would stretch out my water windows, and especially with having so many different controllers all throughout the property. Some of them have a ton of turf on them, where others were mostly plants. But obviously the turf is the biggest user of the water throughout the property, and trying to irrigate 73 acres of turf a night in the dead of summer, you're running a ton of water. And so I would have to, it wasn't a 24-hour water window. Didn't want to have as much, I tried to want to do as much irrigating at night. But at the same point, I had to stretch it out into the daytime. And it used to be my last controller would probably stop irrigating sometime around noon the following day.
So as you are implementing this plan, right, you've
Mhm.
stretched your water window as far as you can possibly tolerate.
Yep.
And beyond that, to accurately manage that system without overtaxing your pump, you have to very specifically isolate each controller and each program start time and make sure that everything is running in a way that you're getting everything done, but you're never overtaxing your pumps.
So here was the thing is I had this great tool in WeatherTrack, but I actually wasn't able to use what I think is one of the best features, where it could adjust the irrigation based off of the ET. I couldn't optimize that because if I didn't know when the controller was going to turn on water, then I can't manage a controller on the other side of the property, not knowing when and how much water it was going to call for in a given night. So I was running everything user no ET. And so that means I'm now the brains behind the irrigation system. That in itself is a little scary, but it is what it is. And that was the only way that I could maximize or I could irrigate the entire property. So like you said, I would have a water window knowing that controller 1, 2, and 3, I'm watering turf starting at 7:30, and then I'd run some things on the other side of the property at that same time, but I couldn't do everything all at once because there was no communication from one end of the property to the other. So I'm trying to do that communicating between them, and I'm trying to make sure that they're only watering between this time and this time so I can go to another section of the community. Exactly. It was a big, I was a clown juggling. The only thing I was missing was a big shoes and a face paint.
That's awesome. Perfect. So what that leads us to, right, is you've got WeatherTrack, you're running in user no ET, you've got your system down, heaven forbid something should change and you have to go refigure everything else out.
Yeah.
And then enter OptiFlow, right? And so what I want to share with you as in terms of the listeners is a little bit about what made OptiFlow unique for your situation, right? You have 55 controllers out there that are sharing one main line, and essentially, and juggling all of the schedules so you never overtax that main line or that pump system. And so what OptiFlow does is it allows all of those controllers to communicate in the cloud together, so we can see what the main line is doing and see what each individual station is doing, and organize the irrigation in a way that will deliver all of the scheduled irrigation without ever overtaxing any one branch of it, without ever overtaxing that main line or that pump system, right? And so for the most simple example of this, what we have in this screen right here is something that we drew up just from one of our controllers. If you've seen my show, you know the old Meadowview HOA. We pulled this sample program of a night that starts right before 9 p.m. and irrigates in an unoptimized way, in the old WeatherTrack way. And it took us till 5 a.m. to get that entire site done. But with OptiFlow, because we're optimizing that main line, we can not only orchestrate irrigation across many different controllers and let the system share that information. But then we can optimize the program that really allows us to shorten the total runtime because we know how to run it without overtaxing. And the way that that works is the optimization itself is very tricky, very, very smart, putting the smart in smart irrigation. We know exactly how much water your source can provide. Wait, let me go back. You've got a main line that can say, for example, run 100 gallons a minute, like we have in this example. And OptiFlow knows how much your main line can supply, and it knows how many gallons per minute every station on your site uses. So we learn the flow for each individual valve or zone or station out there. We know how much each area needs or uses by the minute. And then OptiFlow will decide for you what needs to run to keep your main line flowing at its capacity. So with 100 gallons per minute, OptiFlow might choose 2 stations at 50 gallons a minute to run that 100 gallons a minute and keep your system there. It might choose 2 stations at 40 gallons a minute and tack on another station at 20 gallons a minute, right? And the smaller the stations are, the more we're going to be allowed to run. So in the conclusion of this example, we're able to run 5 stations at once, right? 2 at 30, 1 at 20, 2 at 10, and it just is more math than one irrigation tech could do. It's unwieldy on a single controller. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been with 55 controllers. And so that is kind of the high level of OptiFlow. That's just what OptiFlow does. And on its face, we don't see that saving any water. It's only adjusting the way that we deliver the water that you've already scheduled. Yes?
Yep. So one of the things that I would say to kind of piggyback on that, and what OptiFlow has really allowed us to do is has allowed me to allow the controller now, based off of the ET and the weather that we're dealing with, it will determine how much water needs to go down in a given night. Now, the problem is I couldn't do that before because, like I said, I couldn't have the controller, each individual controller that's not communicating with another controller. I couldn't have it all of a sudden say, okay, I'm going to run, this turf zone or this station. I'm going to run it for 40 minutes tonight. But then it's overlapping with 3 other controllers that I'm trying to irrigate. So that wasn't an option before.
Let me say that in a different way, right? As the weather track schedule is adjusting, it is defining the scientific irrigation schedule, and it changes every night, right? Which it can change the frequency or the day pattern, right? How often it waters. It can change how much it waters in a night. It also does a fancy cycle and soak thing where we don't apply more water than your soil can absorb. So all of these variables made it too difficult to manage or automated by WeatherTrack on your site because of the constraints of the system. Okay, that was. I just wanted to.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Delve into that a little bit.
Yep. So that was that's been one of the things, and now having the OptiFlow on there, it's allowed me to not have to go through on a night-by-night basis, or as I'm driving around the community, pull my laptop out every 15 minutes when I drive past. Okay, I've got a hot spot here. I've got standing water here. Let me make some adjustments. I'm not having to go through and do that near as much. I might reduce the zone by, using the percentages based off of what I'm physically seeing, kind of like what you were saying. Okay, the soil is low firm here. It's not able to take that in. A lot of those little details we've got set up as we're bringing controller by controller on with OptiFlow. With the cycle and soak major slopes, I've got a lot of retention basins, and with those, some of them are 20 feet, 30 feet deep. So I've got side walls going down into the retention basins, and southwestern facing slope, it's just getting beat down by the sun and during the summer all afternoon and evening. So obviously I've got to get a little bit more water on those areas just because the sun is pulling all that moisture out of the soil. So I've gone through and I've been able to adjust those slopes in the settings or in those station settings, and they will run the cycle and soak for us,
That's
based
beautiful.
off of that. So yeah.
So designed to to give away the big answer of the day, how is OptiFlow helping Layton Lakes save water? And the answer really is by optimizing the schedules, by maintaining that main line at a visible constant level, we're able to then ease the management of those stations in a way that you don't feel like you have to use or no ET anymore. And
Correct.
you're able to implement that weather-based irrigation.
Most definitely. And that alone has been able to, we're going into our first summer. That, to me, that's going to be the real telltale sign as to how effective and how efficient. So I know I'm going to be tweaking things as we go, as we start getting into those dog days of summer with day after day of 110 plus degree temperatures. And, we're going to have to make some changes, but I know that the changes are going to be minimal compared to what I used to have to do.
So can you speak to how different it is now with OptiFlow, right? How the process of management has changed for you?
Oh, the one of the biggest things is I don't have to spend near the amount of time of going out and making daily changes. Like you said, I've got 55 controllers. There's not enough time in the day for me to go around, to 55 controllers with anywhere from 30 to 45, 48 stations per controller, going through and making those changes on the daily. Now I'm allowing WeatherTrack to do what it's really designed to do, and so it's making those changes, and it's much more efficient than I could ever think about being. And so go ahead.
And one of the things that Jeff mentioned, by the way, if Jeff Welsh is listening, we keep dropping Jeff Welsh's name.
Hey, Jeff.
So, hi, Jeff. Thanks for setting this up. A great subject for the day. Thank you for that. One of the things that Jeff mentioned is that through this optimization process, not only are we seeing the programs be more efficient, but you're able to allow your teams to do field upgrades and focus on the efficiency of the hardware in the field more as well. Is that true?
That is very much the case, and that we could do another whole session on that alone, but really being able to make sure that that the flow sensors, all the hardware that goes along with that, the flow sensors, I just totally lost my train of thought there, but everything, flow sensors are master valves. So the way our systems are all set up, each controller has its own master valve, which they are normally open master valves. So they get shut when the system detects a leak. If something is running or if there's X amount of flow, we can set those parameters. But once you reach that threshold, then it will shut down that master valve, and then it shuts down that leg of the main line that goes that's responsible for that individual controller. So it's really that's another way that it's going to end up saving us water, because I did not have that feature activated prior to installing OptiFlow. So the master valve, if I had a mainline break or if something got stuck on, it was going to be stuck until we got back either the next morning or what have you, unless I get a call from our management company in the middle of the night, which happens, and then I've got to send somebody out there to go shut something off or isolate something. So,
all right. So here's what the water
savings.
Yeah, huge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only dollar and water savings, but not having to wake up in the middle of the night savings, which is a special, unique kind of savings that you can't put a dollar amount on.
And I'll tell you, I was going to say, and so speaking of our mainline system, my main line, the largest pipe that we have in the mainline system is 10 inches. The majority of the main line out there and the sub mains after the master valves are anywhere from 4 to 6. So I've got a lot of 8-inch main line, I've got a lot of 10-inch main line, and a ton of 4 and 6-inch main line. That's a lot of water that can be lost if there is a main line break. Thank God, knock on wood, we don't get too many of those, but they do happen a few times a year. You know, we'll have something happens.
So this is what the water nerds tune in for, is just a little bit of demo of these features. And so what I want to do is just have you walk me through this controller 8. We have expanded because this was the first one that you tested on. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did on that test?
Okay, so the first thing that we did, we activated the flow monitoring system. We had to go back through and relearn flow, make sure that everything was lined up correctly. I don't know if you want the map I'm pointing, I know you can't see me. If you want to zoom out a little bit. Yep. Okay, so this green belt that kind of runs right down through there, the majority of that green belt is on that controller 8. So there's I couldn't tell you the exact acreage, but I'm guessing we've probably got maybe 10 acres of turf in that green belt alone, 8 to 10 acres of turf. So controller 8, you know, is responsible for a good portion of that. So one of the things that we've been able to do is it was really nice to be able for me to kind of wash my hands like I'm in Vegas of having to, you know, make changes on a daily basis and allow WeatherTrack to, as we said before, do what it was designed to do. And it has taken our water window, as I said, and obviously you see the sidewalk going down through there. So like a lot of communities, people get up early in the mornings in Arizona and in the evenings and walk. And I know people probably curse me all the time because I would have irrigation running. Thank goodness most of them don't understand that it is reclaimed water. So they'd curse me even more if they really understood what that was. Yeah. But nonetheless, you know, I'm trying not to, you know, hamper people's lifestyles as much as possible. And I want to try and irrigate these areas when there's as minimal traffic, you know, on these walking paths and stuff as possible. So that has really allowed me to condense that water window. I do not recall off the top of my head what it was before we implemented this. If Jeff is around, I know he took really good notes. And feel free, Jeff, to dig through your notes and let us know what those water windows look like before and after. But I know it was a very drastic change. And the turf has been awesome ever since we've made that change. And me being able to kind of wash my hands of making daily changes to those stations.
So what we've done here is set up your city water source and then all of the different little sub mains all along. So that big pump station is this city water source.
That's our master valve. So that's our point of connection with our mainline system is that city water source. So that master valve, we've allowed 120 gallons per minute to come through that master valve going to that controller.
Perfect segue. All right. So with that 120 gallons per minute in mind, what I think is the most impressive part of the OptiFlow system is this screen right here, the optimize page, where we can really start to see exactly some of the great things that we've talked about. First and foremost, we see how the 120 gallon per minute limit is set and then how OptiFlow responds to that, right? We can scroll through and look at every 5-minute window, see what is watering inside each 5-minute window to keep your main line flowing at that capacity. So in this example here, we've got 19 different stations from 5 or 6 different controllers, all working together to keep that capacity running.
And you can see the values. You've got everything from 1 gallon a minute all the way up to 49.6 gallons for, was at station 19.
Yeah. So that's a testament to the juggling act, the challenge of what you were up against before, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you couldn't have
So
two 19s kick on at the same time.
yeah, yeah, correct. And that is the other thing is with OptiFlow, and this is one of the reasons that my water windows have condensed so much. With OptiFlow, I could only run one station at a time. You know, from a given program. So I couldn't overlap where you've got multiple programs in program A, which are turf valves. I could only have one valve running on program A at a time. So if I've got one running for 22.7 minutes, you see that last one, station 2, if it's running for 22.7 minutes, nothing else is going to run on program A until that valve is completed its runtime.
Right. And with OptiFlow, now we can run as many as 8 stations per controller at a time. So we could feasibly, I don't even want to count. There's 4, 5, 6, 7 controllers here. So if they were all running at 2 gallons a minute, we could feasibly run 7 times 8 is 56 stations at once, right? To keep your main line flowing at that capacity.
Correct.
And then the other thing, I know we're running short on time here, but the other thing that I did want to highlight as we scroll down and look at this, I think it's worth noting that we see all of your programs have the same start time, the same water window, right? We've eliminated that juggling act that was the bane of your management existence, right? We've taken all of that off of your plate and allowed you to really drill into much finer tuning details to get to that superior water management that you're providing.
Correct.
So I think that is a testament to all your hard work. I love to see where the rubber meets the road on this stuff. So great job with that.
Call me back in July.
It's a challenge. I'll say this, ET schedules are dialed in once you get them through the heat of the summer, right? The stress point is going to be your, what did you say, 2 months of 90-degree heat?
No, 90, I'll take 2 months of 90 anytime. It is probably about 3.5 months of 105 plus degree temperatures.
But once that weather-based irrigation can keep you green,
survive that,
everything else is gravy.
Correct.
I love it. All right, so we are just about out of time here. I do have one question. Larry Anderson asks, can Optimize Flow program be added to a Pro 3 controller? And the answer is, in certain circumstances, yes. If you have a 1 controller, 1 point of connection setup, then we sell what we call an OptiFlow key, which is just a USB, or it goes into the USB port in the back of that controller, and we can take Pro 3s up to OptiFlow. But when you have these advanced configurations like the ones that we're discussing here, it may need to be a XR. When the controller listens to a flow sensor and then shares that information to other controllers, the XR is required to get that done. So good question, Larry. Thank you for that. And I'm going to wrap up the same way I wrap up each one of these sessions, DeWayne. I'm going to I ask all of my guests, what does WeatherTrack save you?
WeatherTrack, the one thing that I told you, quick answer, time. It has saved me a ton of time, personal time, my irrigator's time, my foreman's time from running around and making changes. And I don't like allowing a lot of people to be able to make changes to my irrigation, because then when something goes wrong, you get this. Who made this change? I didn't do it. He did it, or he did it. Exactly. It wasn't me. So it's removed me having to allow multiple people to be in there and minimize that confusion or miscommunication. That's been absolutely huge. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to the summertime and trying to get this system dialed in as much as possible. And like you said, once I get through the summer, then I don't have a lot of hair, but hopefully that I'll be able to let my hair down and relax a little bit and kind of watch it really do what it does. Up to this point, still staying very hands-on with the irrigation, and you know, I'm not going to let go, but so much. But no,
Yeah,
definitely
level of
the
management's
time.
always going to be required, right?
Correct.
That's never going away.
That's never going away. But I already know that the amount of time of going through and making changes on a nightly basis, you know, that's going to be drastically reduced. So thank you very much to WeatherTrack and OptiFlow for that.
That's awesome.
So,
great answer. Thank you so much. Let me take over the screen one more time, and we will go back to this guy. Looking forward to next week now. Before we do, always got to give a shout out to our customer support and customer service team. If you have WeatherTrack questions, we are always here to help. You can contact our customer support team live at the 800 number or via email. We have online resources, all sorts of documentation, videos, and self-help guides that might walk you through any sort of issues that you're having. And we offer on-demand certified free training through our learnupon.hydropoint.com or hydropoint.learnupon.com.
I want to throw a shout out to your support team. Thank you guys so much for always being there and helping us out through this learning curve, and as we've been learning this. Jeff as well. Thank you guys very much. I couldn't have done it without you guys, and you guys have made that transition a heck of a lot smoother than it would have otherwise been.
That's awesome. I'm sure they love to hear it. I will convey that to them.
Please.
And then next week, we are going to have our special guest, a territory manager for Site 1 by the name of John Ross, who is a very experienced central control guy and has helped oversee multiple customers with WeatherTrack retrofit projects on very large sites, 50 plus controllers on the sites that he manages, much like DeWayne, but he handles it from a different perspective. He's not the on-site manager. He just helps facilitate the process of getting them into WeatherTrack. And so he's going to have a unique take on kind of all that goes into figuring out what sites need when they are thinking about doing a WeatherTrack retrofit. So join us next week for that. Looking forward to John and his experience. DeWayne, that brings us to the close. I wanted to say thank you so much for making time.
Appreciate it. No worries. I appreciate the outlet, and I hope I answered some questions or gave some people some information that they might not have otherwise had, or it'll either stir some questions coming your guys' way.
Well, if we get any questions for you, I will be sure to pay them forward.
Sounds good.
And thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
And everybody, we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye.